at 6:03 p.m. So as Dave just mentioned, we do have someone that would like to speak, but it sounds like we will wait until that item comes up. Okay, so number one on the agenda is consideration and possible action regarding regular meeting minutes of March 9th, 2021, and the special meeting minutes of March 22nd, 2021.
I have a comment on this. The meeting minutes from March 22nd, the special meeting, item number 1, it says the motion carried unanimously 3-0, but there were 4 participants in the meeting, and I didn't know if that was a typo, and I just want to point it out in case it was.
Right, absolutely. While we had Allison on the line, I think we had her about halfway on the line. Allison, do you think we should, log a, kind of a different, vote for you there? Because I know that, that you did have some, some questions and thoughts on how that goes. Would you guys, I will be happy to amend those, depending on. Oh, I think you're on mute. Hey, Allison, real quick, I think you're on mute.
I only caught about 30 seconds. And what I heard was the tail end of the vote, was approved unanimously. And that was all I heard. So
Gotcha.
in terms of the, in terms of being able to log in and get, everything done, because I was trying to do it on that tablet.
Right.
So, and then once I called in, the vote was already done. So that's really all I know about it. I really, and I have not had an opportunity to look at the YouTube video or anything since then. So because of work, I've been in and out of town because of work. So I don't know what to recommend, but that's what happened. And I'm
right.
So, well, does that answer the question? You were on mute, so I don't know. Does Brittany need to restate what you just said as a question for the minutes?
No, I mean, I get it. I guess she was in the meeting, but not really able, or she didn't hear the agenda item, and so wasn't really eligible or able to vote in full conscience, I guess, is how we should represent that.
So, we've got, absent, Allison at the beginning of the meeting, and, with the note that the connectivity issues, were hampering her ability to participate. So if that sounds like it's fair to you guys, just to say that Allison was sort of with us, but at the same time wasn't able to participate. We've got her, kind of in a limbo status, where it's, she was kind of there, but kind of not, which is.
I'll tell you, I was working, trying to get logged in at 5:50 p.m. So
right.
by 5:15 or whatever you show there, it was not happening.
Right.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, the end result is okay. It just for minutes. That was a good question too.
Yeah. So, and as far as what's occurred since then, with that agenda item, I'm happy about the result. So, I don't have any outstanding questions or anything now. I think it's pretty much been.
Good. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. And if anybody ever has any concerns, that's what the good communication is all about. On the meeting minutes for the March 2nd regular meeting, I did have one minor thing we might want to address. On page 3, the next to last sentence where it says after replacement of the rotting wood, I think it was Brittany. I know we had a discussion about the siding and the trim colors. were discussed. So it may just be a minor, it's a very minor thing, but we go on the minutes, it talks about going right to this discussion on the sign and the lighting on the sign. So my statement is simply, could we add in after the sentence about the rotting wood, there was discussion about siding and trim color selection. Just a slight omission. And then we went on to talk about the sign.
We
That's
have
the
to
way,
add that.
is that the way you remember it, Brittany?
Yes, yes, and that's a good point. Yep, I concur.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so can we get a motion? If there's nothing.
Yeah, I move to how do you say it? Go back and read.
Make a motion.
Yeah, I move to I guess accept the regular meeting minutes from both March 9th and the March 22nd, 2001 meetings with the modification as requested.
And for clarity, that was a modification on just the March 2nd meeting, right? Are we going to leave the 22nd?
Yes, the March 9th meeting. Yeah, just the March 9th meeting.
And my comment was on the March 2nd meeting, page 3.
So I think, Brittany, just for clarity, that was the March 2nd meeting, but we didn't have one on.
Yeah, I guess on the agenda it says March 9th meeting, but maybe I'm getting that wrong. Okay, March 2nd meeting then, yes, correct.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I confused y'all on that. I had written the wrong, no, my comment was for the March 9th regular meeting, March
I
9th.
don't think we had a March 9th regular meeting, right? We meet on the first Tuesday, so that would have been the 2nd.
Oh, well, I'm looking at the,
It's
okay.
on the agenda.
Oh, okay, all right, got it, yep, thank you. The 9th is on the agenda, yeah.
Sorry about that.
We're good. Okay, so yes, we have a motion and we need a second.
I second that motion.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Is there any opposition? The ayes have it. The motion passes. Minutes approved on both meetings.
And really quickly, Jeff, before we move on, I think Miriam accidentally got muted on the call. Miriam, are you able to unmute?
Might have to call her.
If you can hear us, Miriam, you're muted. If you're able to, I've not used Zoom from my telephone, so I don't know if it's just as simple as looking at your, options there to unmute yourself or.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Got it.
Thanks.
Okay, so item number 2 on the agenda, consideration and possible action regarding a proposed wall sign and a proposed freestanding sign for Samplers in Stitchin located at 305 Caroline Street in the Historic Preservation District.
Members of the commission, you have the information here in your packet, both the sign application as well as the kind of the graphics there, and along with some photos of where the signs are going to go. So with that, the applicant is here, Ms. Caroline Austin. So I will turn it back over to you guys, and I can answer the questions, or if you have any of the applicant.
a freestanding sign replacing one that's already there, or is that a new sign that they'll be adding to their business?
They are opening the business and I think I know that the P&Z last year had approved an insurance sign in this location. So, which is gone now. So
Okay.
for all intents and purposes, it's a new sign, but there was one that was, similarly placed in with the last business that was in that space.
Okay. So it'll be completely replaced with new. Okay.
Right.
Is there any, the grass area to the right of the building, is that part of the parking and property for this particular business?
It is all owned by the same owner. It's not any parking there, but it's just open space lawn that's there. That's not designed for parking, but is just kind of open space.
Okay, so in the event of, a wind or, we have some type of storm or anything, is that, I think that's a brilliant design idea on the sign to the right using the spools. Very creative. My question is, will those be anchored in some way or, in order to prevent, wind-blown debris or in the event of a storm or damage, yes?
Yes, ma'am. They're going to be anchored by having the post that are the uprights down into the
Okay.
ground.
Okay. All right.
In the proposal, we mentioned that they'd be into the ground similar to a post hole being
Yeah.
placed, but they
Yep.
will be removable if need be at the time.
Okay.
Will it have a light on it?
Thank you.
Does it have a light?
Was there a question there regarding a light on it?
Yes.
No, there is no illumination to the sign other than the street lights in the area. Or the porch.
Okay.
The porch light.
And I might add that that is a good design for anchored. It's a good point for it to be anchored against the wind, but if you do have to move it for something that happens there, it's not, at least you're not having to remove cement.
Correct.
So that's a good design. The only question I had was on the plywood on your diagram, again, like Allison said, love the design. The plywood, the only concern I had was, will it be stained and sealed from the weather? Just so that it doesn't deteriorate. I know the sign itself is aluminum and that's a nice look. But I just wanted to mention that because with this, the humidity and the weather that we get, is it possibly a type of plywood that will hold together well?
Yes, sir. It's a exterior grade 3/4 inch plywood that will have a paint applied over the wood itself, so it will be protected from the weather.
Oh, great. Okay, very good. Looks like you've covered got it covered. Thank you. And well, since I'm on the floor here, on the other sign on the building, you did mention that it's obviously it's going to fit within the trim work. So size-wise, it looks like we're fine. It's not going to hang over.
No,
outside
sir,
the trim.
we've measured and it will sit under that green louvered hexagon.
Yes.
And the sign will stop before you get to the white, what's the correct term for that?
I don't know.
The white trim piece.
Yes, yes. So that's a nice, you're within the border.
Yes,
And
sir,
well-
within the border of that triangle.
Great. And you're under the percentage for the total, so should, proportion-wise, it should look real well. And obviously, you're trying to, the sign on the front of the building is to the north, and the one on the side of the building is to the west. So you're trying to have that visible as you're coming down the street. Whereas if they were both facing the same way, we may think that we would say that would be redundant.
Right.
So,
Do you ever intend to light that front sign?
That's on the front of the house.
Yes.
I don't know at this point if there's any electrical that can be accessed to light that front sign.
Do you anticipate wanting to?
I don't think
I
so.
don't believe so. We're not planning to be open at night, so.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we appreciate the detail and for you being here today. Always encourage all people to try to, as we said earlier, we sure appreciate you being there to answer questions. Are there any other questions? Okay.
No questions over here, and I don't know if it's acceptable at this time, but I'll move to approve the proposed sign for Samplers and Stitching located at 305 Caroline Street.
I second that motion.
We have a second, and all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. The ayes have it. It's unanimous, and good luck with that sign. And thank you. Good luck with the business.
Thank you. I do have one question before we withdraw from the meeting. I know now that you have approved the signage, do we just come into the city building to pay the $50
Yes, ma'am.
fee?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
excellent.
Thank you all.
Thank you all very
Uh,
much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Love the
Thank-
design. Yeah.
Thank you. you.
Great. Okay. Moving on to item number 3 on the agenda. Consideration and possible action regarding a proposed wood privacy fence at 825 College Street in the Historic Preservation District.
Members of the commission, you have here, the applicant is not on the line. I should note, I did speak with him earlier today and he had confirmed, I just don't see him here on the meeting, but he has asked to build a privacy fence around his property, which is at 825 College. And again, I mentioned that Carol Langley had asked to provide a comment on this, that she wasn't going to be able to make the meeting, and had asked me to read the following comment. She says, as a property owner and resident on College Street, I would like to ask the Planning and Zoning Board to consider the privacy fence at 825 College Street. The fence will be an asset to the area. Thank you for your time, Carol Langley. And for reference, she lives at 1002. So she lives, just a few hundred yards or so down the street from this applicant.
What is the ordinance for downtown historic district with privacy fences? I mean, is it just going to be some picket fences, some privacy fences? Is it board, non-colored, non-treated? Is it white? What is that ordinance? I mean, they're asking for something, but do we have an ordinance for what it is that the historic district is supposed to have for the fencing?
Right. It does not. The ordinance does not specify what type of fencing that you have to have. It does prohibit a chain link fence, but other than that, whether it's a privacy fence or picket fence, the ordinance doesn't specify.
Is that what we want? Is that what we want in downtown? Is privacy fence everywhere? And how far is it coming up? And is it just the backyard, or is it coming up to the front yard? Is it blocking the view of some other type of historic home, or the way that it looks when you drive down that street?
To speak to that, there is a mix of fences, in downtown. Some are privacy and some are not. The particular applicant in this case is asked to put, from the sides of his house and garage, he's proposing a 6-foot fence, and then along the sides in the back, he's proposing an 8-foot fence.
Are there any other 8-foot fences?
Not to my knowledge, but again, I've not, gone around to look and see, you know,
I just wondered because it's not very traditional on a residential.
it is a tall fence.
Well,
I will agree with that.
Personally, I would like to make a motion to table this and so that we can review it and look and see what is actually going on in our downtown area to make a comparison. Because if we start allowing 8-foot fences and 6-foot fences and it starts getting mixed matched and it takes away from our historic district, you know, we don't want to set the precedent, because I live in an area that does not have any ordinances or POAs or HOAs or whatever. And we're at the point now where there's 8-foot, 6-foot, 4-foot, 3-foot, picket, not picket, you know, rotten, fallen down, cedar, brown, white, whatever. And it's not very appealing, but that's my take on it. I mean, that's what I'd like to do. I would like to table this and have the planning and the zoning collectively or individually go and look and then come back and talk about this. But you know, that's my motion that I want to make.
Well, let me just say this, Miriam. You do bring up some very good points. And one thing I was going to encourage you all is that we do find that oftentimes it's really good to go out and look at the site. So let me just give you a little bit of history, a little bit of input that I can. I did go out there today because my first reaction was, wow, that's a lot of fence. And it's something where you do have to look around. There are some other privacy fences. We did one about a year ago, kind of up a little bit further up towards town on Caroline, and it's solid, it's metal. And by the time you put your stuff in the bottom of the board, sometimes with these wooden fences, even they get a little higher than 6 foot. But so there are some other ones around. But let me just say from my observation that, and I know a little bit of history on this house. I think it's been something coming for a while. They have goats in the back, and they got quite a bit of equipment. The house, as you're looking at the house from the front, from the street, the house on the right has been for sale off and on. And I know that person has made comments that it was hard to sell the house because they were looking at all these things in the backyard. I will say this, that after looking at it, as you look from the street on the left side, it's all solid woods, and it really doesn't affect that side because it is all solid green belt. So down the side, on the right side, on the back, I'm fine with it because there's also a neighbor behind that looks in on that. And there have been some things there that I think they've tried to do. I was a little leery about the front because you don't want to see a solid fence across the whole front. But the way that they're looking at tying this in, it comes from the corner to the outbuilding, and then a little bit on the left side. So what I was going to say is that if anything, you know, if they don't, I guess I want to know the reason for the front. Now, if it's there to try to block some of the things they're going to put back there, then, you know, in other words, for the location and for the situation, the way that the other neighbors look into it, it looks like it does make some sense. But I agree, it's something that you've got to, I mean, we all agree, you've got to look at the situation. So with that, I will just say, as we move forward, I would encourage all of us that we see something on the agenda that's coming up that needs to be looked at visually to understand it, then by all means, let's try to take a look at it.
Jeff, when you look at the agenda report for it, there's a discrepancy on the address. So it says 825 Caroline on the subject, and then it says property on College Street.
Is my
So
mistake.
when I went to look today, yesterday, I did not look at this place. I looked at a different location that also did not have a fence and a similar situation. So,
But
um,
I'm sorry, let me interrupt you. I guess I'm not sure what it is 825 College Street is the address, correct? Is that correct?
It is, and in error, it looks like I have put 825 Caroline on the agenda item.
Oh, I see.
I-
Okay.
I still,
to ask about drainage, how would that impede drainage? So, natural drainage, from adjacent properties. So, so therefore I've not really looked at this either. And, I looked at a different property based on Caroline as opposed to College.
I still move that we table it. I don't feel like we're confident enough as a planning and zoning commission for a total yes or no. I don't think we are all there for an agreement on this. And besides that, I have the same questions. The drainage, what is it blocking? Why 8 foot? Why 6 foot? What is the material going to be made of?
Well, I mean,
I understand
it's a privacy fence, so that's why we're looking at
Yes.
6 foot. But I
Yeah.
understand. And I think with any fence, it's up to the landowner to do the drainage. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean,
Yeah.
Dave, is there any chance that the city could adopt a rule about fences that would just cover all the historic area and it didn't come up every time someone wanted to put a fence in?
So the historic preservation ordinance is based off of the design the historic district. There's a set of design guidelines that I should point out are not adopted. They're based on, there were a set of design guidelines that addressed, various factors of, primarily buildings, but also included, accessory buildings and other things like that in the historic district. And I should point out that those are not adopted. So in order, if I, just kind of, again, this is my first pass at, kind of considering this, but if we are going to standardize fences in the historic district, I don't believe that we can do that in isolation. I think we're going to have to move forward with adopting the design guidelines that would cover, every aspect of design, including homes and, accessory buildings and things like that. Again, the guidelines are just that. They are guidelines, but they are not a requirement. My sense is that's from experience and, my own sense here on staff, that's going to be a fairly large lift in a sense to officially adopt any type of design guidelines for the historic district. And just as a reminder on the process, so you guys would have to, review those, get comfortable with them, make any amendments, and then they would go to the city council for adoption.
The reason I wondered is just because every time you can have different people on council, another year goes by, and what people's view of what looks okay or is nice in the downtown area can completely change. And then it may not be what you guys were just talking about of a more cohesive look, but you will then start having the different colors, the different heights, the different, unless that's what everybody likes. I just thought it might be if there were parameters that you had to stay within.
Right.
I would like to do that. As a planning and zoning commission, I'm on it for 2 years. I would like to spend some time because our downtown is only going to grow. I mean, it's already doing it. And I don't think anyone should be told you can or you can't do this, but I think the consensus of what our town looks like and what we're trying to preserve historically, that needs to be intact. We need to have, I think, not necessarily a standardization. I just think guidelines that the people can look at and say, this is your guidelines. Like, example, only 6 foot privacy fences, and you can only go up to your front porch, and it has to diagonal down so people can look at the beautiful, array of whatever the historical home is. Now, as you said too earlier, there's animals and different stuff like that. And I agree with that. I think, I don't want to look in on goats or chickens particularly. And I understand the neighbors, and I understand the person that wants to put the fence up. But if we do 8 foot in the back and 6 foot on the side and 3 foot down the road, and that's all I'm getting at. I just think there's too many questions about this that we can say yay or nay tonight, or for me, myself personally, to say yes or no tonight. I just feel like this right here needs to be tabled, and I don't know the protocol for planning a commission if we can call a meeting where it's all of us sitting there and talking and actually looking at what limited things that we have now that we presently have that we can use, opposed to moving forward and saying, hey, look, these are some upgrades that we can do in our ordinances for the historical district. Anyways, that's how I feel about it. I don't feel comfortable enough to say yes or no.
I appreciate that your concerns. Let me just add again to that we do have a lot of variety, and I think we have to look at the property sometimes as an individual. Let me just ask Dave, has there anything come up about the owner or I guess it's the family owner? Is it either the owners? I know the owners don't live there, but the family member that's in charge of the maintenance. Has anything been talked about where they've discussed this with the neighbors?
Not to my knowledge, no. There was, again, in the pack, there was just a note. I had asked that question, and, he said, there was talking, in years past about, the adjacent owners all kind of splitting the cost, of a fence. In other words, one person doesn't pay for everyone else's fence, but I don't know.
We can't go by that. Yeah, we don't know.
Right.
And that's not really our area. But yeah, and I agree. I think the 8 foot part, that gets your attention a little bit. That's where, if this thing gets approved, there may have to be some limits on that. But I can go back and forth whether we want to table it or not. We hate to hold things up, but I think in this case, it needs to be looked at. Again, I think as we move forward, this is a good example of we try to look at things. Certain items on the agenda need to be looked at visually to have a total understanding.
Jeff, I agree with you guys. The reason for a P&Z board is for leadership, and and to help ensure continuity, an equal application of in a historical area of town. So I agree with you guys. If you and I'll move to table it if everybody's ready to do that.
How about Brittany? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I am actually opposed to tabling it. I've been out there. My thoughts when I saw it, 8 foot is not scary to me because, most of the time at 6 feet, some people are able to peek over and still see inside the yard. The one thing that I was hesitant about was the 6 foot on the front of the property, just because there's white corral fencing or white picket fencing down that road. And I just don't know if doing a 6 foot privacy fence is in keeping with that aesthetic. But in terms of the fencing on the side and the rear of the property, I mean, this property, the yard is visible from Caroline Street. And so I understand the desire and the need, especially with animals, to construct that and to want that privacy, especially with all the traffic to the park over there. So I'm ready to move forward on this item. I think I would be opposed to tabling it, but I may be in the minority on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I did have, I did have a question about the wooded area on the left side of the property. would that have to be removed in order to erect that 8-foot fence on the left side?
My
But I guess the
understanding.
property owner is not here.
You know?
Right, right. Just, based on, just kind of, an observation of going by there, it looks like the answer would be yes. There would have to be some clearing there in order to construct the fence.
And that's a good question. We might need to actually know where is the boundary line exactly. If we could get that. But yeah, again, I'm trying to put out both sides in my thinking, and I do see a need for a privacy fence there because of the situation and the location.
So if I can just from a procedural standpoint, I think that Miriam had made a motion to table and then Allison made one, which could be considered the second to table. So if she's, willing to second that motion that Miriam made, then you've got a motion and a second on the floor.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor to table this until the next P&Z meeting, say aye.
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 I'm going to stay neutral. We have a majority.
We had 3 there. And those 3 would have been Allison, Miriam, and Carrie. Is that right?
Yes.
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 Do the ayes have it?
So yes, the ayes have it. Thank you. Very good. Good input, everybody. And we look forward to getting this done.
Is there any way that we could meet as a group so that we can kind of get on the same page? I agree. I think Brittany is the one that said something about the privacy fence. She understands the 6 and the 8 and trying to block some of the things that other people don't want to look at.
Yes.
Is there a way that we can meet as a planning and zoning commission and discuss what it is that we are technically not, that we have an issue with, so that when we come back next month, we can have a clear vision and a clear answer for these people, because I'm sure they want to move along with it as well. Is there something we can do like that, Dave? Or
The short answer is not without a lot of work. And the reason is because we would have to, that meeting would actually have, if you guys met in more than a quorum, we're going to have to call a public meeting. And when you get into a moving public meeting, you also have to be able to provide a way for the public who wanted to, to listen in and, observe that meeting. We then are in a position to be able to have to provide transportation for them. And if you run into
All right.
Yeah,
So-
that's a good point.
But
And that's good for us all to remember that anytime, we're always looking at potential quorums. But what we can do is, and I should have probably stated this right up front, is we can do what we've always done, and that is on our own before the meeting, take a look. You can usually tell from the agenda if it's something that you really want to visualize. I will ask Dave if you can get the resident who you've been dealing with to maybe put just a post with an orange flag on it right there on the property line in the front on that left side, so that when we do go by there and look at it, at least we know that that's the actual line, and it'll help us to envision what happens with that green area.
It would also help the property owner to be on, if possible, on the meeting, so that any questions can be handled right on the spot. Also, to get the typo corrected on the agenda, that would help.
Absolutely, yes. We always encourage these people, the owners, whoever it is, to try to be at the meetings, because
Yeah.
just for this kind of reason, we can be so much more efficient when we get direct answers and know exactly what we're talking about. So
Yeah,
absolutely.
A little more, that helps when former P&Z board members like Carol, write in support of it. Then that way we can bridge the gap and the information that we need, and
Yeah.
help the, so.
And I might add, when we do take, when we do go all the way down the end of that street, and yes, there's a lot of different variety. There are a lot of fences that are ranch style, which is nice. But there's also some of the solid ones, and you'll see it down there. Even at Carol's house, there's a couple places where they've got things behind the fence and privacy on the side and the front. But you also got to keep in mind, not just that street, the whole area. So good time for us to get out and take a good look.
And just, again, to circle back to the idea of adopting, formally adopting the design guidelines for the historic district, just to give you guys an idea, my sense is you're probably talking about a 6, month or so process. So, this is probably going to be something that you're going to want to resolve before we adopt design guidelines. One of those, once we get to the design guideline phases that, that you like and you're ready to recommend those to council, we're going to have to notify every property owner in the historic district and, have a series of public meetings, with them.
Well, do they have to conform, or that's just going forward when you want to put a fence in?
It would only be going forward. Anything that was already there would be, grandfathered in.
Well, we're talking about, a design plan for the city in the historical district anyway, right now. So,
But let me just add, we're not starting with a clean slate here. This is not,
That's right.
We've got a lot of stuff that's already there.
we've got to move forward. And so, we've got to figure out how to bridge the gap between the needs of the taxpayers and the needs of the historical preservation of the community. And so if we have, if we're asked to provide leadership on that, we need a better basis, to address concerns like Miriam has, because if Miriam has it, then there will be other people that have it as well.
Well, yes, I know. I'm trying to say, you always keep in mind, let's not create a problem where there isn't a problem. Sure, there's always going to be people that are opposed to something that goes up, and then 6 months, a year later, everybody's fine. We see it all the time. We have a lot of variety. So I'm just saying, try to keep an open mind.
Exactly.
There's a lot of variety, and you don't want to be over regulatory either. And you can find all kinds of things probably in the old ordinances, but that doesn't always pertain to today. So just talking from experience. Well, good input, and we'll hopefully be able to get this going by the next meeting. And Dave, not only that marker for the side marker, but also when you're talking to the person, if there's any indication of that they have discussed this with the neighbors, that would be appreciated.
Yep.
Okay, so that item number 3 is tabled. Item number 4 on the agenda, consideration of possible action regarding a proposed wall sign for 3D's Deli located at 401 College Street, Suite 170 in the Historic Preservation District.
Members of the commission, you may recall this had come before the commission in the past, and the owner has got a proof from the sign company on it. Again, as I mentioned in the packet, they've done a vinyl graphic on their window, which the city is not historically treated signs, and just for your consideration. I'll be happy to answer any thoughts or questions you have. Again, I had notified this owner as well, that her attendance, was strongly encouraged at this meeting, and I did not see her on.
Thanks, Dave. For this one, my comments would be, I think the sign is great. I have no issues with it. I do want to make a comment about the window graphic. In my opinion, it does not affect the viewer functionality of the window, and therefore it's effectively transparent. And so I would like to continue not, I mean, I don't consider that a sign that needs any regulation or oversight. So that's my comment on this item.
I agree.
So do I.
Yeah, and the window graphic does not duplicate the sign. It is different, and it's, as you say, it's you see through it pretty well. So I agree.
Is it within our ordinance, Dave? Do we have any ordinance about wraps on windows? I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying, is there anything in there that says they can't do it, or others can't do it, or it is okay, or?
It doesn't speak to it at all. To give you, say, another example, the kind of, if you've been to the Kroger and have walked in the Kroger store, there's the, kind of whatever over that's, just, historically not been considered a sign, per se by the city.
I don't have a problem with it. I was just asking if we have something written down that as a group, we're going against something that's in the ordinances that we're not supposed to, but it doesn't bother me.
Okay, I move to approve the proposed wall sign for 3D's Deli located at 401 College Street, Suite 170 in the Historical Preservation District.
I second that.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye,
Aye.
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 and the ayes have it. It passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so that was the last item on the agenda. So we need a motion to adjourn. If anybody has any other comments, please do so.
I move to adjourn.
I second that motion.
All right, it's unanimous. Thank you all. Good
Thank
meeting.
you, Jeff. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Jeff.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Good night.
All right.
Good night.